Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Croak, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
It was Rome to London Heathrow, and they said, I can't believe that your layover is only an hour there, because typically that would be not enough time.
Right, Heathrow's a big airport, I think.
And so I was just thinking about when I was coming back from Italy, I was thinking about the airlines, and it made me think of you. Because I know you love the airlines. Do you have anything to say?
No, I said in our last podcast, they'll never get an endorsement from me. And of course, the day after we did that podcast, I got an email from United that said, hey, you're going to have a shitty experience on this flight. Based on the fare you bought, you're going to have a shitty experience.
They said shitty experience. Okay.
Well, they didn't say it shitty, but they listed out all the reasons it was going to be bad. It's like, you can't bring any luggage. You're not going to get any food. You've got a crappy seat. You're going to be the last one on the plane. But if you'd like to upgrade to a mediocre experience, it's just an additional $79. Or if you'd like a less shitty experience, $159. or the best, you can go first class for $1,500 more. Be like,
as we commenced this podcast, we were wondering how long it would take Brian to diss a potential sponsor.
And I love when he really gets into it. When he doesn't like a sponsor,
so he's down on United. We know that now. Was that United?
Yeah, that was United.
So Amber, let's slide United over to the right side of the board, because they are probably striking out now with us as a potential sponsor.
I think it's the left side of the board, but
the left side is you're right. You're absolutely right. But with that said,
and if I'm confusing people, I am here. This is Matt, but I am off camera today.
Yes,
not because he hurt his face again.
Yeah, he hurt his face. The squirrel attacked him yet again. 5 of the
Linsey, I normally show up with bandages on my face, and each one is literally a different reason why I have bandages on my face.
And it's good that you stay off camera, right? For this one.
Tough going.
So actually, this is an exciting podcast for us guys, because we have a special guest with us. Very excited to have this young lady to my left in the room with us as managing partner of the Chicago-based law firm Gould Ratner. This talented and very bright woman leads with more than 25 years of deal-making experience. Her clients include national brands, investors, developers with interests throughout the U.S., all of whom rely on her ability to navigate complex transactions with confidence. So, good friend, longtime colleague, trusted partner, everybody, Linsey Cohen.
Hey, all right, okay. Welcome, Linsey. We gave you a new Glarus, right?
Thank you. Yes. I got a new Glarus.
I don't have a new Glarus. We do have Absolute Raspberry, our good friends at Absolute. But Linsey,
you're gonna have to edit that out.
No, and what also is really excited about having Linsey here is she's here. She's in Studio G, so we're thrilled to have her make the long commute up from deep in the jungle of Chicago to come
north of the Cheddar Curtain.
Exactly.
How about it?
Into Wisconsin. So Linsey, let's just start off. Let's talk about the days of yore. You're trying to make a decision. Did you always want to be an attorney? I mean, so Linsey, as the managing partner of a big law firm, starts with being an attorney. Did you always want to be an attorney?
Inbred since I was a little kid.
Really?
Uh-huh.
She was writing contracts at like 4 years old.
Back in the day, if you were a little girl with an opinion and you expressed it and you were argumentative, you were supposed to be a lawyer. So
did it go in the family though? Was there anybody else in the family that like was steering you that way to say like, hey?
Yes, right. Because I was argumentative. From a young age, I remember my family always saying, you always argue about everything. I think you should be a lawyer.
That's good. That's good. She's like, all right, that's what I'm going to pursue. And so from a very young age, that's what you want to do. Was there any aspect of law, like a division or an area of law that really intrigued you more than others? Or were you just like, I want to be an attorney?
I went in, I was a blank slate. I really didn't know much. I didn't know much about being a lawyer. I really was not surrounded by them growing up. So I went in as a blank slate, and I really kind of took some courses. And one day I took a land use and zoning class, and then got an opportunity when I was graduating to be a land use lawyer. And I said, well, I took a class. I can do that.
That kind of qualifies checkbox.
Bingo, checkbox.
So real estate.
But real estate, yes. So I started off doing land use and zoning and only did that for about 6 months, and then started doing transactional real estate work immediately right after.
It's a popular topic here on CEO Bros because of my business, because of Brad's business. So
yeah, you doing private real estate. I mean, how often were you engaged in just everything with law firms? I mean, you didn't do leasing and all that, right? It was all marketing.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the transactional, like specifically, what does that mean?
Well, so it could mean anything from buying or selling an asset to financing it. Could just be managing it. So there could be issues related to the management of an asset. And for me, over the course of the 25 years, I've probably bought and sold every kind of asset that you can think of: office, industrial,
you
residential.
Personally, or are you helping clients? Or both?
Me helping clients.
Wow, we've got a real estate tycoon there.
But when you started, though, were you doing it independently, or were you working for a small firm? Did you always work for Gould Ratner? Like, have you, like, take us on that short journey? I mean, you don't have to go too far into it. Was it like you started off on your own, or did you start off in a smaller firm, a different firm?
Yeah, so I took actually an unusual path for a lawyer. I started off as an in-house lawyer working for a company, which most lawyers out of law school go to work for law firms first, and they get trained in a law firm, and then they go in-house. No experience.
Did the company know that?
They did, actually.
That's interesting. So I mean, seriously, no. Or not a lot of legal experience, but coming in as the corporate attorney?
Coming in as a corporate attorney.
Somebody's pounding their fist somewhere, Linsey, going, how did we let that woman down?
A young lawyer with no experience. And so...
I don't think I knew that one.
Yeah, none.
Brad trusted you with all his contracts. It's like, I had no idea.
We worked with a small autism therapy provider. I'm like, Linsey, that's awesome.
Exactly. And I spent a lot of time reading. No, it was the company was growing really fast. And so they just gave me an opportunity to kind of contribute in places where I could and learn along the way. And I was surrounded by a lot of great mentors and a lot of people who I could ask questions of, who, by the way, 30 years later are still friends and mentors of mine.
That's very cool.
It was a great experience, and I would actually never ever change it for the world. What I lacked in the first 5 years in legal training, I got in learning how to work with businesses, which I think was invaluable. I don't think I could probably do what I do today without having had those first 5 years.
What do you think was impactful for a mentor? What did you find useful when you were being mentored? What skill, what quality, what lessons?
Patience, open-mindedness, empathy, to understand and to be caring about the fact that I was calling them, some people daily, oftentimes multiple times a day, to say, I know this seems crazy that I don't know the answer, but I don't. And somebody's asking me this question and I have to give them an answer. And so, all the qualities I think that you see in mentors, as somebody who now acts as a mentor, all the qualities that I try to exhibit are the ones that people exhibited towards me when I was first starting out.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Linsey brings something up that we heard from one of our prior guests, where you have all those years of academia where you're learning, and you're like, it's not really applicable to what I'm doing though day to day. Remember when Yanni said he was basically doing all this work, and he said, I was getting this great education, I was learning all these things, but it couldn't be practically applied to the things that I was working on. And did you feel like that was ever the case for you, Linsey, where you felt like I'm like learning all this stuff, but it's not really what I'm doing in the real world? Or was it truly, no, everything you learned in school could translate right into what you were doing in the office?
I would say definitely like bits and pieces of what I learned in academia carried over, but most of what I did and learned along the way was just real life experience.
Yeah.
And you learn very quickly, even in the practice of law, that oftentimes it's good intuition and sound reasoning that make the best decisions. listen, there are times when you have to know the law and have to understand it.
We talked about that. We talked about lawyers being like for business people, entrepreneurs who know nothing. Like Brad referred to it as the parent-child relationship of, you realize you can't do that, right? That's not legit. That's not legal. It's like, wait, what? Can you help me figure out a way that it is? Or,
well, Linsey and I have known each other for a long time, and she has. There's so many different experiences where or things that we've been involved with. Who is that? Is that our wild turkey out there?
The wild turkey has been.
If those cannot hear it, there's an animal barking outside. We believe a dog.
You didn't tell me you were bringing another guest star. I thought it was just me.
Come on.
We have a white lab.
It's Trixie, the magic dog.
No, now I lost my train of thought. Where was that? I have to think through where I was at now.
We were talking about with business people, entrepreneurs like us. When you first start, legal's the last thing you think of. It's just go, go, go. And then the attorney's almost like that parent who says, you might want to think about that. And we also talked about how we always thought business corporate attorney helps you make decisions that are going to impact you in the future. Like an entrepreneur just runs and goes. And then 3 years later, you go, should have never signed that deal, or we should have never structured it that way.
I should have listened.
I should have. Now I know what she was talking about 3 years ago.
Well, that's what I was getting. So where I was going initially was I was like, all the years that I've known Linsey and where she's helped the business, I will say I've gone to her for guidance and counsel and said, hey, what do you think? And she'll always say, hey, if you go this path, this is what it's going to look like. If you don't do this is what's going to happen. So it's basically lay out your options, this is what we think, is potentially your best path. But again, decision you have to make. It's good to get legal guidance. And I was just thinking about like from the time, how many times I've reached out to you, Linsey, and just be like, you're like, we don't advise you to do that. Or, that would be probably a little bit more aggressive to take that path. And sometimes you just need that person sitting there chiming on this side saying, hey, and I always said it is like a parent-child relationship. You don't want to hear it, right? Especially if you're trying to grow a business. You don't want to hear those things that you feel like are slowing you down or stopping you or feel like you're being derailed, but you have to do it.
So going into that relationship for the entrepreneur, what do you feel that relationship is? Do you get frustrated when people don't take your advice? Or do you go, no, I'm just here to give you options and you're going to do, or do you go, no, you really need to listen? How do you cultivate that relationship of when they should listen and when you're just saying, I'm just giving you options so you can do what you think is best?
Yeah, I don't get frustrated because I recognize the headwinds that, especially an entrepreneur when they're starting out are facing. My piece of it is just one piece of the bigger picture. And really, you go back to those first 5 years where I spent kind of being a business person and a lawyer. And I learned that my job is not to tell you what you can't do, but to help you figure out how you can do it.
I like that a lot.
And so that's something that I think has served me well. I said those first 5 years were so valuable. And that's why they were so valuable, because it taught me a lesson about what it's like to be on the other side.
Yep.
Right. I mean, we sat in the same office for 5 years. Right. And my goal was to figure out how people can get deals done. So how do you be a deal maker, not a deal breaker?
It's refreshing because not all attorneys are that way. I don't want to get into a grinds my gears thing, but I've run into a lot.
We can't put a big axe across
representatives where I feel like it's my kung fu is better than your kung fu. It's like, look, we're both trying to get a deal done. I don't care whose legal knowledge is better, but I feel like we're redlining contracts back and forth just to change things, not to move the deal forward. So I've always gravitated towards people like yourself who realize like, okay, no, we want to get this done. This is not a, protect ourselves at all costs and eliminate 100% of the liability and the risk. It's let's figure out, I want to understand what the risks are and the liabilities, but make the business decision around it.
But we ultimately want to grow the company.
Right.
Yeah.
We want to make money. We want to get to the next step. And so
how many times have you asked, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Yeah.
Is that a good question or a bad question? Is that
no? But we put that. What is our?
Okay.
Because think of it from the perspective of what is the worst possible scenario I can find myself in if I take this step. It could be monetary value damage. It could be, it could be reputation damage. It could be a number of different things. And so you seek that out. And a lot of times it does. And we've had discussions around this on prior podcasts where we say at a certain point in time, you have to make a business decision and you have to weigh out whether or not the liability outweighs the opportunity or vice versa. And so a lot of times that's what I would be balancing with Gould Ratner, with Linsey directly, or another attorney within her staff.
Right, because you understand the upside, but don't know the potential downside or liabilities enough to make that judgment call.
Yeah, I'd say that. And so Linsey, one thing that comes to mind is that we talk about entrepreneurs or people that are starting a business. So let's say somebody that wants to just get going. Like, can you think of a time when it like makes sense? Like, is there a right time to say you should start to be reaching out to an attorney at this point? Or do you or even put differently, do people reach out to attorneys too soon? I've always wondered, like, do you guys get calls and you go, you really shouldn't be talking to us yet about this?
Yeah. Well, sometimes people like to use attorneys in some instances as like their crutch, right? So they call you right away because they want you to bless what they're doing. And you're kind of like, yeah, well, maybe you should talk to the other side first and figure out whether or not you have a deal before you call me. But especially as an entrepreneur starting a new business, I mean, they should be thinking about contacting their attorneys fairly early on, right? I mean, certainly before money moves or partnerships get formed, right? As they're working through that, you want to make sure that you start things out on the right foot, and that you even amongst friends, that you kind of put everything in writing somewhere somehow, even if it's on a napkin, just to make sure that there's a meeting of the minds of the people who are going into business together, because I think that's very important.
Do you see that unravel? I mean, do you see those scenarios where you're like, guys, had you just taken one step and documented that? I mean, do you guys see a lot of that, or is it past that point for where you're at now? Meaning someone that's so early in the process just doesn't do the simple things right out of the gate. And you're like, guys, you should have started with this.
You certainly
Does it happen often?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you certainly see people who, start a business with a friend and they kind of get it going. And then one day everybody scratches their head and you realize the one friend owns the IP rights to some software or something, or some, something important. And
it's not clear.
And it's not clear who owns it. And, or it is clear who owns it, and it's not the company, but it's the friend and not the partner. Right. So, it's a balance, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's a balance. It's kind of looking at the circumstances and deciding this looks and feels about the right time to, engage and put this on paper, put it to a writing, get sort of like, the founders agreement together, if you will, where we're kind of putting together and, the deal, what's our deal, who's going to own what, who's responsible for doing what, because the last thing you want is to have a dispute or animosity amongst partners as you're trying to start a business. There's enough things happening on the outside that are coming at you that, not agreeing with your partner as you're starting a business, I think, is a tough way to get going.
Almost sounds like
before we go on, what I wanted to do is I wanted to open my drink, and I just wanted to toast. Well, first of all, absolute cran raspberry. We appreciate these guys too. But what I wanted to say is this is the first time that I'm actually sitting with Linsey in probably 25 plus years where I'm not getting billed by the minute. So I really, really enjoy this.
I think you are. I signed something.
You didn't mention that to me when you asked me to come up here.
All of a sudden, an invoice is spitting out on my fax machine.
In fact, I'm charging Matt's phone right now, too, and I'm charging him for that.
Literally. I'll take this gets dead serious.
Charging you.
It's actually connected to my credit card, so every charge.
I'm just kidding. No, exactly. Linsey and I talk all the time off the record. And but I had to say that, I had to toast.
To go along with that, it almost sounds like, and it's anecdotal, if you have a friendship and you're going into business, you might want to do it early. It could probably save friendships, because if that foundation is not laid of who has what or whatever, it almost...
Even if you're brothers.
Right. I mean, you've probably seen many relationships
a podcast company
ruined over those kind of disputes.
For sure. I mean, friendship definitely is an outside factor that you want to take into account, because When you're friends, you're comfortable with each other and you get comfortable and you say, oh, we'll work this out later. And then suddenly one day you realize you never worked it out. So
it seems, as you guys are talking, it seems like a common theme through every type of transaction. So there's starting the business and setting the terms, the articles of incorporation and all that. Doing a client deal, do you have the terms of the deal thought out first? Doing a partnership with a vendor, doing an acquisition, doing a sale of your company. It's always, hey, we've talked about these 6 things. What else do we need to worry about? It's like, well, there's these 20. It's like,
Well, you like you said though, there's been so many things though that I've worked with Linsey and her team through the years legally, which is like you think, okay, I've been through so many different agreements and things, and yet there's so many things that still come up, and it's like I had no idea. Well, either the law changed, or that's a provision in this agreement that you wouldn't have seen before, Brad, but now you guys are going to see because of this. It's amazing the things you think or the things we talk about, the things you just don't know, and it's always good to get that good counsel to say, should I be coming due with this or not?
Yeah.
And
well, and part of it too is that we see so many different types of deals day in and day out, right? So we work together on a certain type of transactions or certain transactions in a certain line of work or business. And you think about it, I'm doing that 10 or 20 times a day with 10 or 20 different clients talking about different industries, different businesses. And so that experience, I think, filters over into some of the advice I'm giving you just because I'm talking to other people and thinking about it from a different perspective or approaching it from a different way. So
do you represent both sides in real estate? So buyers and sellers, lessees and lessors, and
yes. Yeah. So one minute you could be financing the transaction, working on the financing, and the next minute you could be the seller, and the next phone call you could be the tenant in a lease.
That's interesting.
It just kind of depends. I mean, certainly in the law, probably as your practice evolves and you grow more experienced, you start to specialize a little bit. Along the way, you get better at one area or another, and probably do it more as a result.
In real estate, like what's the biggest thing that typically comes up in a deal, or that is going to come up in 70% of the deals on either side? Is there like an issue or a topic that okay, we always get
same
hung up
4 or
on
5 provisions. It's like, all right, this is going to come up. We're going to be talking.
So depending on the kind of transaction you're doing, like in a typical lease situation where you might be doing a large lease for a large tenant who will be moving into a space, doesn't really matter what kind of space. The timing of from the day you sign the lease to the day the tenant might start operating their business, there's a lot that has to happen. And those provisions are typically heavily negotiated, right? How long does a landlord have to complete work that they have to complete? How long does the tenant have until they have to open? When do they have to start paying rent? Those kinds of things. Those always come up and are traditionally heavily negotiated in leases because there's so much unknown, right? I mean, you're dealing with the unknown of timing and construction and things like that. So those are often heavily negotiated. I always say in a lease, the first half of the lease are all those types of things, and the second half of the lease are the things that the lawyers talk about, which are the boring provisions.
Yeah.
So are there a lot of unknowns? Does anything still surprise you? I know it does. Or what does still surprise you after all these years dealing with all these transactions?
Yeah, is there anything that catches you off guard, Linsey?
It doesn't sound like it's as cookie cutter as maybe I thought of. I do this over and over. It's the same format, but it sounds like there's still a lot of unknowns.
Well, in real estate, every piece of real estate is unique. Every deal is unique. So the answer is, do things surprise me still? Not that much anymore. They don't surprise me. But every deal is unique. And so there's always something. There's always something.
There's that one
it's
thing.
Like with anything, right?
Right.
You feel that in business too. There's always something. Like, you think, I've seen this so many times, it has to go this way. And then suddenly the curveball.
I think the biggest thing I've found through the years is something that you think is cut and dry. Like, I don't know how many times I've said to Linsey where I'm like borderline frustrated because I'm like, shouldn't it just be ABC or black and white and this and after she gets done explaining something, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. No, that makes okay. But as Brian and I talked about before, as like an entrepreneur that's on a go. I want to grow my company. I want to start doing this and do that. And you don't want anything to slow you down. Even if it's the best thing in the world for you, don't want to slow down, And I just recall so many different times. I probably owe Linsey so many apologies because it's like, are you serious? Like, why wouldn't this just be this? Like you were saying when you guys sued Zillow. And you said you talked to the attorney that was representing you guys.
The litigator.
Shouldn't it just be like this? And like, Brian, that's not how this is.
She told me I watch too much TV.
That's
not my fault that they do it so well on TV.
So Linsey, what about misperceptions? Is there as an attorney in general, not a real estate attorney or a managing partner, but attorneys in general, are there misperceptions?
He's just laughing while he says it. He's like,
no, wait. Is there anything that you'd like to? No, is there, as an attorney, are there misperceptions that the general lay people have of attorneys that you go, guys, this is not this or it's not that?
Sure.
That you'd love to dispel.
Yeah, sure.
She's like, I have a list.
Yeah, I mean, starting with, I wrote them on my hand so I wouldn't forget. No. That somehow attorney benefits when it takes longer for a deal to get done, right? So we kind of
that's a good one. That's a good
one. All right, good debate.
Start.
Let's go there. Another podcast.
We exchange a lot of red lines is an opportunity to increase our fees. I mean, there's nobody that wants a deal to get done and signed, at least from my perspective, more than me. I want to do the work that I need to do and then move it off to the side so that you can go and, kind of move on and do your thing, whether it's buying or selling something or
that's interesting,
bringing in investors.
Not of your firm, but you have that, you tend to have that belief, right? You're like, why is this redlining? Why are they going to redline it again and redline and redline? You're like, I think they're just doing it for billables. Yeah. Not you guys, but just in general. I'm sure people feel that way and you probably hear that, or you guys as an attorney hear that. Is that the case?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a word in our industry called churn. They just churn the file, right? They just want to keep working the file or working the file to death. And I'm the exact opposite, I would say. Like for me, the most important thing to do is to get the deal to the place where it's ready to be done and then move it on and move it out so that you can go to the next.
I wonder if it's, again, not to take off the topic, if it's people might assume they're not unknowns. Like they may think, well, there's so many things online. I really should just be filling out a form online. And it's like, no, there are unknowns and you're going to need someone to guide you through this process. Maybe I wonder if that's why that misconception, because they're like, what's the problem? Like the problem is there's a lot of things going on at once. Maybe entrepreneurs don't realize that.
Well, like I've said, from the real estate side or when I've started companies, I've always gone and started my own LLCs without the help of a law firm. Right. I basically have gone through like LegalZoom and started an LLC for just a really cookie cutter type operating agreement and incorporating an LLC. I just because I know that there's not a lot to it until you want to customize it or until you want to get more complex or you're going to start introducing more partners, different lines of business, different geographies. That's when the viewer that's out there, you're saying, well, when should I be getting an attorney involved? And I mean, hopefully Linsey agrees with this, is that a lot of times I start out of the general, right off the website, you can get your LLC and you can get a very, right out of the box operating agreement. Very simple if you're running a very simple business. But as soon as you start introducing a lot of other complexities, you should really, from my perspective, and Linsey, I would hope you agree, that you should be engaging an attorney at that point.
I think that's exactly right. Like, you want to organize an LLC, no problem, do it yourself. You want to have a single member LLC, just you, nobody else, no partners, no investors. Yeah, I mean, that's easy. I think you're exactly right. It's just when you start introducing complexities, right? You start introducing investors or you start introducing partners or, that you feel the product is, or the project or the business is going to go to the next level. Yeah, for sure. Because there's so many things that you need to be thinking about, right? You need to be thinking about what does the partnership look like? You need to be thinking about, do we have employees? You need to be thinking about what are the tax implications? You need to think about what are the, if I'm going to have employees, what are the, how do I have to structure that? And what are the obligations do I have to them? So those are all the situations where I would think that you would start to want to engage with counsel so that you could, work through those things.
Yeah, and I don't think most entrepreneurs think of it, or at least the ones I've worked with. I always say they're the eternal optimist. Everything's going to go great. Do yourself a favor and have a session where you think through the what ifs. And usually your attorneys can point out, 5 or 6. What if they don't pay you? What if the product doesn't work the way it's supposed to? What if this happens? And you're like, oh my God, you're such a downer. It's like, yeah, but these are things that happen in the real world. And if you're not prepared and haven't thought about it in advance, at least thought about it, whether you put it in your agreements up front or not, at least you're aware that, oh yeah, I guess that could happen, is invaluable. Because I've seen so many people get to that point where, they run into a common problem and never thought it could happen to them. Be like, oh shit, now what do? We go to court and we argue it because we didn't talk about it ahead of time. Especially, I come from a background of sales. Most of the people I know are sales guys. It's like anything to get the deal done. Any questions that we have to answer is just taking one more day that I don't get my commission. So let's get this thing through and let someone else worry about it. But after being in business for so long, you realize those things come back to haunt you, big time. It's like, we should have talked about this earlier. We should have thought about this. I did do one deal recently. We did an acquisition where I really trusted the other side. And we were able to say, you know what, if it comes to that, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And it happened. Like 2 or 3 times we got to something that wasn't in the agreement. We were able to work it out. But as a rule, that was rare.
Yeah. And by the way, very refreshing when you are in a transaction like that with people that you can actually trust. And that when somebody says something, whether it's in writing or not, they honor it, right? I mean, I can think back in my years of practice, some of the clients that I remember the most are the ones who said, well, I said that. It may not say it in the agreement, but I said that, and I'm a person of my word. And
that's very cool.
And to me,
it should be.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that too, and I've always said that. And then in the back of my mind, I say, well, what if me or the other guy aren't here? We should probably cover it. But if I'm confident that I'll be there, or I can pass on to the next person, whoever, look, we agreed to this. Sorry. Like you said, I don't care if it's in the agreement or not. It was a gentleman's agreement or whatever, informal. We're gonna stick to it. You see less and less of that, unfortunately, nowadays.
Unfortunately, that's right. Yeah. I like everything else, I think everything has become more complex. Agreements have become longer. The what could go wrong and the what ifs the list has gotten longer, unfortunately.
Linsey, is there a lot of things that have, like, through the years have changed, like the law has changed so much that maybe not necessarily in agreements, but like how do you guys as a group, as a firm how do you keep everything updated? I guess that would be something I'd always like. Is it just you heard something, or is it like, no, on a quarterly basis, you guys have to review to make sure that everything's now been updated for anything that has been amended over the last X time? How does that?
Yeah. So work? It depends what area of practice you're in, for sure. But we're constantly monitoring changes in the law. I mean, we have sources and services that we use, right? Like
you get a text alert.
Yeah, right.
New change.
But
but is that a general? Is that a common practice for all firms that, like, at X time frame, you guys have to review everything to make sure that it's up to date, or is it as something changes, it gets modified?
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's not we don't have like a quarterly update. We are ongoing monitoring changes. And again, depending on the area of law, like if you're a tax lawyer, for example, those things change all the time.
All the time. Right.
And every day you could potentially be dealing with something that's changing. So that might be happening more. As a transactional lawyer, we see changes, maybe not as many as they might see in other areas of practice. But we're monitoring it all the time.
So areas of practice, you've been in primarily in real estate. You've been kind of general practice over. Is there any one area where, like, if I had to do it all over again, I would go this direction? Or are you like, no, I love the direction I went. I'm glad that I was in real estate. I'm glad the path I went. Or no, it's great. I'm glad that I was in real estate, but I'd really like, if I could do it all over again, I would spend more of my time in looking into this area.
Yeah, no, I love deal making. So for me, it turned out exactly the way it should have. I like working. I like coming to very, very few times I can think of in my career where a deal didn't move forward because of the lawyers, right? Or because of something that I was doing. It's usually, things fall apart usually because of money and because, there become divergent interests, but not because of the lawyers. So what I like is I get opportunities to bring two sides together and create an agreement, oftentimes in an amicable way, not always, but oftentimes in an amicable way. And usually it culminates in some kind of a closing, right? Whether it's a deal closing or a document signing or a partnership that you put together. And everybody usually in that moment is happy. Not always, but usually in that moment is happy.
Yes.
So, I don't think I would trade the path that I took for it all. I think it was right. So
how about, do you see a big difference in working with public companies versus private companies? And the reason I ask is we sold our company to a publicly traded company, and man, the burden seemed 10 times as high on just compliance with things. And I was like, maybe it was the company's view on risk tolerance or something like that, but man, it just seemed way more difficult. Like to me, it almost seemed impossible for a public company to work with a private company because of some of the privacy laws and the data protection laws now that public companies are held to, where it's like, okay, our vendor has 3 employees. He can't possibly be SOX compliant and all this other stuff that we need him to be.
What I'm hearing is anger. I'm hearing resentment. What I'm not hearing
is why I retired.
Also, he just
SOX compliance was like,
Lindsay's like, what do I do if he swings at me?
No. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's not an attorney's fault. That's
so public versus private.
I think the answer is certainly with public companies, they're often more mature. Mm-hmm. They often have more rules.
Call me immature. No.
Yeah. No, they often have more rules, right?
Sure,
so sometimes it's rules that are just check boxes, and is somebody who might be more entrepreneurial, who might be sitting on the outside saying, "Really, you got to check all those boxes." So there is definitely a difference. Oftentimes they're not as nimble, right? The publicly traded companies are not as nimble as the private, kind of closely held businesses. Maybe partially because the private closely held businesses have people who are generally more risk tolerant, right? They are deal makers and entrepreneurs, and they have a certain approach. I always say real estate people are gamblers by nature, right? A little bit. There's a little bit of a nature of mm-hmm. I'm gonna sell this project and then double down to the next one, and let's hope it goes as successfully as the first one. So there is certainly the profile of the kinds of people in business that you come across. I think you're exactly right. I think there's,
I feel like it's unfortunate for entrepreneurs because a lot of, small companies, that's how they make their hay is you wind up getting a deal with a Walmart or an Amazon or a Google or whoever, but it just seems harder than ever to do those deals.
Yeah. And I mean, I've even come across situations where a public company has had to make a decision that they simply couldn't do work with a private business because maybe they couldn't carry the proper insurance or couldn't give the right,
big one. Yeah.
A concept in the law of an indemnity. They couldn't give the right indemnity, or they didn't have enough assets to back up the indemnity that they were giving. And, as small as a contract that could be $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, and the public company says, even though it's a small contract, the risk associated with that contract is so high that we have to be protected. And so you, small company, couldn't provide me that protection. And that I've certainly seen that come up in the past. And, unfortunate, but I suppose a reality from both sides, right?
Right. You gotta deal with it.
Yeah.
I've got one other one for you that I've been meaning to ask for a long time. In early on, it just seemed to be a nuisance, but every contract jurisdiction comes up. It's going to be in our jurisdiction, your jurisdiction. And, the rule of thumb seemed to be whoever has the most liability, which is always hard to figure out. But now it's,
Are you talking about a transaction where a company is being sold to another company?
Well, it could be a client,
Or
it
just
could
a
be a business
transaction
partner. At the end of the contract, clause like 37 says, what jurisdiction is this? Is it New Jersey? Is it California? Is it Illinois? Whose law are we following? And then it seemed to me, I'm like the old guy now. It seemed like in the old days it didn't really matter. But nowadays, I would never do a contract with the jurisdiction being California or Washington State with the product liability laws. It's like, I'm not signing that. I'm sorry. But it was always like the last thing. And I never really had a good sense of they wanted it in their jurisdiction. We wanted it in ours. Fortunately for us, we were a C Corp. And so we usually defaulted to Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really got a good answer on
I want
that.
you to give me a hug.
By the way, Brad, he already
like
has
therapy for me.
Seattle, and now he just out California. Let's just take the whole West Coast and cross off for Brian.
He's got a problem with the city of
Amber,
Seattle.
just cross off the whole West Coast.
Seattle, we've taken out
So does
California.
that go on the advertisers list? Like we're not going to be selling,
we cannot.
dates from Southern California now.
Well, we can't. What we've learned, Lindsay, is that we cannot sell into the city of Seattle for anything. Quite frankly, because
Brian, are you cool with Alaska?
Think about any product you've bought in the last 5 years, how many tags it comes with that say, in California, this product causes cancer. In California, this product is a known toxin. So anyway,
Lindsay, can you put his
I
mind
thought you were
at
going to
ease?
talk
or
about the
or-
mattress tags.
Oh, well,
and yes, I do rip them off, by the way.
Nice.
Misconception number 3: attorneys do rip off mattress tags.
Exactly.
check that.
Yeah, wait. So, is there anything that you would address quickly on that matter, or is it just like, hey, Bright, it is what it is?
Oftentimes I think it's for convenience, right? You don't want to travel out of your jurisdiction if there's litigation involved.
Well, that's what I thought originally, but now it seems like state laws are different.
No, now I think there are new considerations I think that people are bringing into account before they agree to those venue clauses.
to go there, right?
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Although you had a problem with Seattle, I love Seattle. I'm kind of surprised you didn't want to go to Seattle.
Yeah, I've had enough of it. I was there for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever. That was enough. It's a beautiful area. I'll say that. It's just
beautiful.
Did
you spend a lot of time inside a courtroom in Seattle?
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
downtown in the federal court,
Okay.
and
Ninth district, right?
yeah, my favorite. And then everybody, I'd send updates every day, and I realized after like the third week, it's not is it raining or not? It's how hard is it raining? It's a light rain, it's a drizzle, it's pouring, it's
Should we step out for a minute? We'll be back.
When he told me he was going out there, Lindsay, for VHT Studios sued Zillow, and it was in the 9th district in Seattle. It was a very
I think they won, didn't they?
We did win. Thank you very much.
So
Yes.
maybe Seattle gets a little kudo?
Well,
Nice attorney work.
Nice
attorney
I'll
work.
give
Putting
him a
the sides
kudo. I'll
together.
give him a
Look at this
kudo
negotiator.
for precedents around copyright
dealmaker.
infringement being in favor of the creator. That's the only credit I'm going to give to the 9th district.
Wait, so Lindsay, let's go back to I liked your first misperception or misconception of the attorney. Can you? Because I was like, okay, I did kind of have that misconception about it. It like seems like the redlining is going on and on. Is it all about billable hours? Is there a commission or is there a quota? Is there a quota on red lines? But what's another one that would come to mind that you hear often? You're like, come on, guys, this is not what attorneys do.
That we like to bill all of our time for everything we do.
Does that come up often? Like like a client will say to you, when were you working on this? Like you'll get that? I haven't used that one on you.
Oh, well, I'm giving you some work. I think sometimes people don't realize that there's a lot of, like, for example, I'll spend a lot of time thinking about something or working on something that I won't bill, because I think that, I think part of my job, is working with you, for example, Brad, and, trying to help you as you were growing the business. Part of my job is to be available to you and to understand what you're dealing with. And so for me, I would always say billing you for every 6 minutes isn't worth it. It's I
appreciate it. I'm grateful for that.
Short term I'm a much longer term thinker.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot, right? I mean, I think lawyers think about that a lot. I don't think everybody thinks, oh, good, the phone just rang, so I'm going to put the timer on, right? Like,
boy, movies don't help you with that then, because that makes for a great script, right? And that's they
No,
go
it's
out of their
great.
way, like The Firm and all that, where they make it like, oh, you pick up the phone. It makes for great dialogue, but may not be actually obviously. It's not-
or I might be fired when I get back to my office because my partners are going to say, you mean you don't bill every 6 minutes?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say though, as a managing partner, aren't you walking a fine line there? Because now you're a business person making sure the firm is billing as much as they can.
For sure. And, you know,
Oh, there's no loss of billable minutes there.
Well,
Don't
it's
worry.
building relationships, though.
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
that's
it
what
is.
the building
True.
relationships.
it
part.
is.
I
And-
mean, because of that approach, that leads us to do more work with them because we trust them and we say that they don't seem to be like they're going after every billable minute of our time. Yes, we do a lot of work with them. Yes, we're billed a lot for a lot of work we do. But at the same time, I always say to them, like, thank God that you went into that you went into it. We went in and got it in detail, completed this. So I'm grateful for it. It's funny because you get irritated, you get frustrated by the rising cost of it. But when it's all said and done and you reflect on what just happened there, and everything that was involved, you digest, you process, and typically it starts with an apology from me to Linsey. That says, Linsey, you know what, you're right. I didn't know that, or I didn't consider it, I didn't think about that. And I think that's an important aspect of it. So,
well, and somebody used the word relationship, and that's right. I mean, that's that the work between a lawyer and a client is definitely a relationship. And, the most successful relationships are ones where the client trusts you. And, but that's not just lawyer client, that's in business too, right? That's in everything.
with everything. Going back to like, if I said that that's what it was, whether it's in the writing or not, but that's what we agreed to, I want my word to be good. And that's how I said every deal should be, right?
Yeah, I've always appreciated a partner that will send the appropriate level of work to a junior attorney instead of billing me for doing something administrative. And that doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's like, okay, I feel like this is a good relationship. I can trust this person or this firm.
That's right. And then it causes you to say the next time, you know, I don't have to delve too deep into this because I know that this person is going to take the project and put it in the right place and make sure it gets taken care of with the right resource. So
I'm just thinking this now. Does a newbie, I'll call them a newbie, do they come in too hot sometimes, too defensive because they think they have to like outmaneuver the attorneys, where you're like, you don't have to come in that defensive. We're not going to, I mean, do you find that when a brand new person using your service for the first time,
A new client.
do they come in too hot at times? You're like, we're going to work together, or are you not finding that?
I think you have to earn their trust. So
Yeah,
the answer
okay.
is yes. I mean, I think you can't just expect that somebody is going to call you and appreciate the value that you're going to bring before you've had a chance to demonstrate that to them. So the answer
So
is
you don't have
yes.
an issue with that. You're
Yeah.
okay. You think that's okay. I got to earn your trust.
For sure. I think that's a fair ask. And you know, the flip side of it is, and not to out, you know, my industry too much, but you know, as young lawyers starting out, sometimes do they spend too much time on a project? Yes. Sometimes when you look at the amount of time that they spent, is it commensurate with the work product? Maybe not. And that's part of the relationship where, for example, it's my job to look at it and say, I think this probably took a little bit too long. And, you know, probably wouldn't be appropriate to send a bill for 4 hours of time when it probably should have only taken an hour and a half. And
How do you, so Linsey, you mentioned something earlier that I never really questioned, but now I do. No, no. How does a law
no, I
firm,
don't have a law degree.
how does a law firm evaluate the thinking time you talked about? Like like a lot of times people think of attorneys as they have to draft something, or there's an output, there's a product output, but there's the thought side of it too. I mean, is it really, I thought about this for 2 hours and then I drafted for 4 hours for a combined 6 hours? Is that how it's looked?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
You know,
I'm just saying
I once sat in a room where somebody used the term, you know, it's in we're selling an intellectual product, right? We're not selling a physical product. We don't have a widget that we're producing, but we're producing an intellectual product that's, a culmination of academia and experience and maybe some, research or whatever. So I think the answer is, yeah. I mean, if you're thinking about something or thinking it through or considering it, I think that's part of the legal service that's getting provided.
That's fair.
So I think the answer is yes.
That's fair. Anybody else have any?
Well, I was wondering, you mentioned profiles, and this may not be a fair question. Can you get a sense of if a company is going to be successful or if they're doing something the right way with everything you've seen? Do you get an idea of going, they know what they're doing, or they're headed in the right track? Can you sense that at all? Or no, it's really not, you can't really ascertain that?
I think the answer is sometimes, not always, right? Sometimes people could be as organized and put together and have a great product, and it could fail. And there could be any number of factors why. But I would say the answer is, as a lawyer, you're cued into a lot of parts of the business as you're talking things through, and you can oftentimes see the gaps or the deficiencies in whether it's the thought process or I'm not the product itself, right? I mean, I wouldn't say we're experts in a particular product,
right,
but in how an entrepreneur might be approaching the business or what their expectations should be. And that just comes with having done it enough times and dealt with enough people and businesses to kind of see how that's going.
Let's do a quick speed round with Linsey. So I'm going to say, Linsey, what's your favorite movie? How about favorite legal movie? Is there a movie involving any kind of a attorney, a firm, like that you say, this, I love watching this?
I mean, who doesn't love Aaron Brockovich?
Okay. All right. Little Aaron Brockovich, Pacific Gas and Electric, right? Yeah. PG&E. The lawsuit that went there.
Notwithstanding that, whatever his juror, what was his name? The Real Housewives of Beverly, or whatever. The husband, the guy that ran
Julia
the firm.
Roberts' love interest?
No,
how do you know that?
What's his name?
Are you talking about the attorney?
Yeah, the head attorney.
Oh my gosh.
He's going to jail.
He is?
Yes.
Wait, the real attorney or the actor?
The real attorney. He was married to the Real Housewife. No, this isn't bringing.
Don't tell me that. I actually look up to that guy.
I thought you meant the actor. I like the actor.
No, not the actor, but the real attorney. He's famous for the Aaron Brockovich case,
and built a big firm out of it because he went and sued PG&E multiple times after that. Went after headquarters multiple times, and I mean, he built a big firm of it. Now he's
breaking news to us here.
I think he may have.
We'll put that
misappropriated client funds so that he could live his lavish lifestyle, and now he's going to jail for it.
Okay, so Aaron Brockovich.
I love Aaron Brockovich.
My question. Okay, Brian, do you have a speed question for Linsey?
I don't know if it's a speed question, but a business person or an attorney that you admire the most, look up to, whatever. Like in business, to me, it would be like a Walt Disney. I've always thought he was fascinating.
But you're talking a mentor within her business?
No.
Just
anybody in general,
Anything, any person you look
goodness,
up to?
I'm trying to think
Even
now.
a TED Talk, like a Mel Robbins, like anything? Like
an Elon Musk, a Steve Jobs, I don't know a lot of famous attorneys, unfortunately, but...
I don't either.
No, maybe they're not.
She said, I clearly don't look up to him.
Right.
Well, it's funny how
it could be somebody you've worked with at some firm where you're like, this person was a stand-up.
Yeah, how about just a personal mentor?
Even Brad. I mean, obviously Brad, but anybody else.
How about a personal mentor? Is there anybody that's really one person that's influenced your life more than anyone else in the business world?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people along the way, but, for me, I was I was a young mother trying to raise a family and grow a legal career, which is not always easy. And so the people that blazed the trail in front of me, I would say some of them who I watched raising 2, 3, 4 children and becoming partners in law firms, to me, it was always incredible because, for not that men don't feel the same burden, but at least for me, my law school class was 60% women and 40% men. And I would bet if you reversed it now and you looked to see where those people are in their careers, it's probably 40% of the women, maybe 30% of them are still partners in law firms. and the rest of them have made other career choices. So when I saw people that could blaze the trail and that you could kind of figure it all out, to me, those were people who I would call mentors.
That makes a lot of sense.
What mine would be, I guess, what skills as a managing partner did you have to acquire that's different from just being attorney? Like, how did that job change for you?
Well, a lot of people will say, and maybe not a misconception, but a lot of people will say that lawyers always think they're good business people, but they're not. And so for me, I would say just approaching it from a business mind and not a legal mind, right? Not approaching it from every risk that exists and trying to figure out, right? But approaching it from the perspective of, okay, what's the best decision that we can make under the circumstances with the information that we have that will allow our business continue to thrive and grow? So probably that, I would say.
That's a very refreshing approach, though, just so you know, because Brian's not kidding. There's not a lot of attorneys that take that perspective on business where how do we find solutions to advance the business? Now, she's got that responsibility as a managing partner, but I'm talking about a firm that represents you. Like, you want a lawyer, you want an attorney, a law firm that's going to say, let's find solutions, not more roadblocks for you, right? And we've both through the years in other situations have ran into attorneys that don't take that perspective. And it's very maddening because you're trying to grow a business and you're looking after an employee base or a client base, trying to take care of your family. And you feel like, is this person just trying to throw up roadblocks or are they really trying to advance the ball? So it's refreshing. I've always known that about you. That's why we work together. But that's what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I actually prefer just one of the things we talked about in a previous episode was trying to advise entrepreneurs on how to work with professional service providers, in particular, attorneys and accountants. And one of the things we said about attorneys was come prepared. Don't just leave this open-ended question of, can you write up a contract because I want to do a deal with this guy about this thing? Like, that's going to be a bad experience, or it's going to be very costly because you're basically asking them to do all your thinking for you. But now I lost my train of thought. I was going to give a story here.
About coming prepared for a discussion with an attorney versus not being prepared.
It sounds like this is the story. That was done on purpose. That's how good he is.
Everyone's like, oh, what?
I'll take it a step further.
Yeah.
I think that an attorney to come prepared needs to do a lot of homework up front. So the one thing that I think is really important is that your attorney come to your offices and spend time with you to learn your business.
Understand the business. Right?
Understand your business. We can represent you better if we know what are the driving forces behind why you're making decisions, what's important to you, what's important to the business, what you're talking about with, your, colleagues, partners, employees on a day-to-day basis. That makes us better. I don't know, Brad, if you remember, but when I first started working with By Your Side, I wanted to come out and see one of the centers.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still talk about it. And I tell people, well, I walked into the center. There was a playground. Then I went into the back and there was a bathroom and there was a bedroom. And so for me, I could understand what you guys were doing in your business by coming out to physically see what you were doing.
Yep.
And I think that can be applied to almost any business. I would say any business, your lawyer, in order to be prepared, should be ingratiated a little bit into what you're doing day to day so they can understand what you're facing, so that when you're selling your company, they understand what's important. Or if you're acquiring another company, they can understand, what you're doing and what's important to you as you're bringing the company in. I
like that a lot, because otherwise it's just a document and it's just words on a page and it's like the context gets lost. And I did think, what I was going to say is along those lines, some of the best relationships I've had is when we've got a deal, we've got an initial document from the partner, maybe whoever we're working with provides the document. We send it to our attorney and I say, don't redline this. Just list out the 6 things that I should be most concerned about. We'll have a discussion. We'll get to the red line later. Because the red line to me is always, I'm just going to change everything, the heretofores and the therefores. And
what are the death blows that are going to take me out?
right, yeah. What are the 6?
I was saying, can we leave the where to's and the here as's out of there
for later? And those are always, to me, the most productive conversations, because I ask a lot of questions then about those 6 things. Okay, why is this important? What's the potential impact? What are my options? So I have a negotiating strategy to go back, not just a red line document that says, here's our position. And, maybe I don't, because it's always a trade-off. I'm going to have to pick the 2 things that are most important to me and give in on 2 or 3 things that they wanted. And the better informed my legal partner is, the better I can be in that negotiation, I think.
I agree totally. Yeah.
I'm laughing sitting here listening to this because, we turn into her. She's almost like a therapist, in the sense like, am I looking at this the right way? Because this is the way I thought about it. And then I did this and that. And then Lindsay's like, yes, you're okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, good. My attorney said it's okay.
So then I have to squeeze this in. So another fun thing, quick round. So give us things as an attorney. People come to you, friends, family, and ask you what that you like, that's not like, what are some amusing things that people come to you like, it's not just attorney. I have a specialty.
Yeah. You mentioned one earlier.
Is
it like that every day for you?
As soon as somebody hears you're an attorney, they think you know everything, right? Like, I went to the DMV and they told me I had an old DUI on my record. What do I do? I don't know. Like,
can I stop drinking?
Call an Uber next
honestly,
time?
Don't drink and drive. I don't know.
Can I sue this person?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny though. You said if you're an attorney, then probably people just throw anything and everything, even if it wouldn't have nothing to do with what you can answer. Yeah. It's like, I have no clue what to tell you.
Especially family members. Yeah, they call me up. Can you look at this? It's like, I don't know anything about this. I can look at it, but I can't promise you that anything I'm going to tell you
Lindsay
matters.
said she'll look at it. Lindsay said she'll look at it. It's like, I know, but I don't know what I'm looking at.
Right.
Do you go to parties and lie about what you do just so you don't have to be asked questions?
No, but I should.
It's funny when I don't know if anybody watches Survivor, but whenever there's an attorney on Survivor, they never admit it until way late in the show because they don't want anybody to know. It's like,
that's good.
Got special skills. One other question too. I've noticed, there's a big difference between the corporate attorney who works for the company and the law firm who works for the company, and it really became apparent to me. You mentioned we had sued Zillow. And at the time we were small, we didn't have a corporate attorney. We just hired a litigation firm. And I think it was the first time she ever had to work directly with a client as opposed to the corporate law department. And it was brutal because I was not used to working with a litigator. She was not used to working directly with a client. But do you mostly work directly with business owners, or do you work with their attorneys or their corporate attorney?
So some of both, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my client is a lawyer, and a lawyer who might be an in-house lawyer, right, working for the company, and they call me up and I help them. Most of the time, I would say,
because they're like generalists and they need specific help.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Or they, they're one lawyer with 10 things that has to get done. And so they don't have the time or the bandwidth to get it done. So they'll call us up and use us to help them. But many times my client is the business person directly, which, is, you can prefer that really, because, sometimes when the lawyer engages you, it's just them going then to the business people to ask them how they want to deal with things. So when you are engaged directly with the business people, then you're kind of talking to the decision makers. And so that helps out a lot.
Right. As we had talked about for smaller companies with professional service providers, in the beginning, you're usually going to work with generalists who can help. But as your business grows, you're going to need specific skill sets, and either your professional service partner is going to help you get those people, or they're not, and you're going to have to be aware. Like a marketing firm who's good at one thing, but they're not good at such and such, but they'll like, well, we'll try it. We're your marketing firm. It's like, no, either get somebody who specializes in this. Like for us, it was copyright law. We had a great, corporate counsel for all of our contracts and deals and acquisitions, but they weren't a litigation firm. So that was a whole separate thing.
It's nice to go to. I've always had the relationship with Linsey, and then we've got. I mean, you've probably shepherded us to probably 8 different divisions within law, patents, trademarks, licensing, real estate leasing. You know, I mean, you go corporate transaction. I mean, there's obviously there's a specialized attorney, like you've said on prior podcasts, and we've been fortunate to be able to go to one firm through the relationship I've had with Linsey, and then obviously, and now with David through all the years. But then there's individuals that just, hey, you need to talk to a corporate legal tax end. You need to talk to a trademark attorney. You need to talk to, and we've been able to do that one-stop shop in one firm. So kind of leads me as we kind of wrap up, Linsey, is if we talk specifically about your firm and boasting a little bit about Gould Ratner, can the average everyday entrepreneur wanting to start a company, can they come to Gould Ratner? Is that something you guys encourage new clients, or you're like, well, no, they need to get to X level before we'll engage them, or you're like, no, we'll talk to somebody that's just getting started?
Yeah, no, we'll talk to anybody just getting started. We love that. We counsel early stage companies all the time. And, you know, I think as you mentioned, one of the nice things is it can start out, you might be talking to a corporate lawyer to help get your corporate structure started, maybe get a partnership agreement together. And then one day you say, well, now I'm going to have some employees. So now what do? I need an employee handbook, or I need to deal with an employee issue, or I want to start, you know. And so, you know, having that capability right there in-house is always helpful for us, right? We just go to somebody else, or there's a tax issue, right? So we kind of talk to our tax people. So, you know, the one thing that I have really appreciated about Gould Ratner is that we can kind of provide full service, and the profile of our clients are exactly the type that you're talking about, right? Entrepreneurs, middle market, growing early stage companies. We deal with them all the time. And, you know, for us, that's actually the best kind of client, because we can grow with you.
Get them in the very beginning as they grow into
and then we can grow with you.
Yeah.
And we can hopefully, you know, maybe we'll keep you out of the litigation department, but we can otherwise,
benefit, right?
We can otherwise kind of, you know, help you to grow and take advantage of the resources that we have. And by the way, the flip side of that is too, when we don't know how to do something, we'll help you find somebody that can. And, you know, we meet a lot of people and come across a lot of people in our own practices every day. And so helping you to identify, for example, you know, somebody that can handle a copyright infringement suit. You know, if we don't have that expertise, we're going to help you identify that person that does. So
Linsey, high level, how many attorneys? Only in Chicago, one office, multiple offices. And then if I'm brand new out of the gate, do I just call the general 800 number and say I need to speak to an attorney? How does that work?
Right.
I don't get right to Linsey. I mean, you can't get right to Linsey, obviously, but
anyone can call me anytime. We're about 55 to 60 lawyers.
Okay.
We have 2 offices. Our main office started almost 90 years ago in Chicago.
Wow.
And last July, we opened up our Denver office, and we've actually been growing that Denver office, and very proud of the growth that we've seen in Denver. So, but we have a nationwide practice. We really, our attorneys practice all over the country. So notwithstanding that we're just 2 offices, we have a practice that kind of spans the country. So,
and then if someone wanted to reach out, how does that work? I mean, I don't even think I can recall now. I mean, obviously I knew you for the longest time, but if I'm somebody that is seeking out an attorney,
it's a good question.
Do I call just the general 800 number and say I'd like to speak to an attorney?
Yeah. So I bet if you called the 1-800 or the main number, the receptionist would probably shuttle you to somebody. But if you're watching the podcast, call me.
There you go.
And I will get you to the right place. But no,
that's
a
awesome.
great offer. Yeah. For entrepreneurs, take advantage of that.
You can go on a law firm's website and see who heads up a department. For example, if you need corporate work, you might go see who heads up their corporate department and start with them. For law firms that are larger, that have offices all over the country, you might start in the office in the city where you're located and find the person who's responsible. Might be the best way to start. Or if you know somebody, or you can find a connection through LinkedIn and say, oh, look, I am connected to somebody that works at that firm. I'll call that person. So multiple probably ways to find somebody.
That's good. That's great. Well, for those viewers that are out there, I think it's great. You have a resource, a legal resource. You know, I think it was great catching up. I mean, if anything, from my vantage point, I've known Linsey for probably going on 2 decades, right? And if you have a good legal partner starting off a business, small business to a mid-sized business, you want to grow, develop, sell, and everything in between, you're going to need a good legal partner. And I've had a good legal partner and good friend in Linsey all these years. So,
yeah, great discussion on relationships. Maybe I watched too many movies, but that was really, that was really interesting to hear the thought behind what it is done in the process and the relationships and cultivating that.
Well, we talked about all the different things that come up in discussions with an attorney. I mean, I think Brian rattled off like 12 different things that you probably should seek an attorney for that. Should seek an attorney for that. And so it just happens over years. And then you wind up becoming, as Linsey mentioned, she becomes more, and her firm became more in our business to learn what we're all about so that they could help us with the best decisions. So, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was great, Linsey. I mean, having Linsey to Studio G.
Oh my God.
Making the long commute here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Linsey, thanks for coming out. And this will conclude our podcast.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Email us if you have any questions. And
other than that, thanks, guys. See ya.
Yeah, this was cathartic for me. I got to get a lot off my chest.
Bill him for that.
Yeah.
Bill him for that.
And I got
you should bill him for it.